Happy Saturday, everyone. We are back for a wingy. It's good to see you guys because I have had a really busy week, and I've actually been really looking forward to getting to this weekend. Even though I'm also busy this weekend, I've just been looking forward to getting back into some wrestling chatter and some watch-alongs and our usual Saturday, Sunday, Monday, 3-day festivities that we have here weekly. I was ready to get to this because it's just been a long week. So we are here today to catch up on some wrestling news, and we're going to talk about last night's Smackdown and what's going on in the King and Queen of the Ring, as well as this past week's Dynamite, how the Owen Hart tournament is looking, and some of the matches that may be on tap for Forbidden Door. In addition to that, we've got some wrestling news to get into today. I've got to talk about the Nick Khan thing. It's been bugging me for 2 days, but the Nick Khan interview where he spoke about WWE's reaction to social media criticism, and he just bold-faced lied to everyone like an asshole. So we're going to talk about that. We have, the news is relatively light, but there are some notable things to talk about, like the Nick Khan stuff and like Mick Foley. Mick Foley apparently is down for one more match. I'll give you my thoughts on that and what they might do and if I agree with it or not in AEW. Also, we've got a little bit of news on the WWE shareholder trial. We talked a lot about that last week, but we have a little bit of an update on that and the trial to talk about. We'll also talk about Maven's latest YouTube video where he claims that he hates Triple H, and we'll talk about that. I'm always down to hear somebody talk about why they hate Triple H. That's always fun. Some news on The Rock. We'll talk about the jacked up CM Punk and when he might be coming back. This past Thursday, TNA held a Wicked Garden match, which turned out to be like the bloodiest match in the Hardy Boys history. I took a look at that. We'll talk about that as well. We have an AEW departure to get into, and we'll talk about Forbidden Door, Night of Champions, and also, kind of preview what may be happening at SummerSlam and All In as things stand right now. But in terms of the wrestling news, it's not too heavy, and I actually kind of wish that it was. I have to work tonight, but I'm going in a little bit later this evening, so I've got plenty of time, but it's kind of like a light-ish podcast. Nothing too earth-shattering to get into, so if there are some stories or anything you want me to discuss, please drop it in the chat. In addition to what we're going to talk about today, you can let me know, drop it in a comment, drop it in a super chat, whatever you want, and we will get to that this afternoon. But I hope you guys are having a great day. Happy Saturday. Welcome to the Wingy. Like I said, pretty good loaded podcast here today, even though there's nothing too earth-shattering going on. Still plenty of stuff to discuss, and I'm going to let you guys know what we are going to be doing tomorrow for our watch-along. Looking forward to that one big time. So we'll be getting into that in just a second, and we'll talk a little bit about what you might see from me this week, including this Monday. Raw, I believe, is in France. They are still overseas, so it's going to air very, very early here in the U.S. And we were here on Monday to talk about Raw when we had to do our watch-along on Monday night that I had to postpone from last Sunday. So this Monday we'll probably just be here for a mid-afternoon Raw review, late afternoon Raw review, something like that, and we will get into that in just a bit. Before we dive into stuff here, let me just say hello to anybody who might be hanging out here in the chat, and then we'll jump into the news and we'll regroup and take a look at the chat and answer all the super chats that come in later on. But it's good to see excuse me, Melissa. We've got Rodrigo in the house. Zane G is here. Handsome Steve Jacobson. That makes two of us, not the Steve Jacobson part, the handsome part. My name is Greg. You turn 36 tomorrow. Holy shit. Yeah. Now you've crossed that bridge. You're halfway to 70 a year ago. Now you're halfway to being in your 70s. You got a will written, right? You need to understand when you get to that age, you got to make a will. And you have to make sure you know so you don't forget. Like, write it down and put it on your refrigerator when Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy comes on, because you don't want to forget. And these days, Matlock is usually in syndication, so check your local listings for Matlock because you're going to be watching a lot of that, Steve, you old bastard. Arthur Jones is in the house as well. Good to see you. Mike Rouse, hello. Ian Dunn, David Brown, always happy to see David. We've got William Cullen and William again dropping in $2. Thanks for that, my friend. Isaac is here. So is Jim K. So is 951 Dave. I'm definitely having a blessed day, man. Stephen Harris is in the house. So is Garrett Osborne. Happy D-Day. Reminds me of Christopher Lloyd's Dennis Van Welker in Camp Nowhere saying Winston Churchill was the Jimi Hendrix of the spoken word. Wow, Camp Nowhere. I don't think I saw Camp Nowhere. Was it like a camp? Was Christopher Lloyd like the leader of like a camp of a bunch of kids or something? That might ring a bell, but I don't really recall the movie. But what a reference there by Garrett. Chaz is here as well. Good to see you, Chaz Medeiros, 1979. Angie's in the house. Good to see you, Angie Law. Also have our boy Ryan Adams. Ben Espinoza is here as well. So is Jake OTC. We've got Denny Downbad, Sports and Things shows, Danny Hoban, Sonic Plays, everybody else chiming in. Good to see you. Garrett Osborne is hoping that TJ win the tag team titles on Collision, and I always go through the Collision lineup every week, and I forgot to actually grab it, so I'm going to just have to pull that up over here on them socials. I go over there to that AEW, the AEW Twitter profile, and if I just click on their pictures, I might be able to see the rundown for Collision, and here it is right here. All right, we will get into that later. TJ does have a title shot tonight. That is going to be right when we're finishing up this podcast, actually. Divine Dominion defending against TJ. I don't know. Divine Dominion is pretty dominant, although they have held the belts for a while. We all love TJ. They're a little bit overmatched size-wise, strength-wise, and whatnot, but you never know. If you're rooting for them, I'm rooting for them too. While we're here, we might as well just run through the rest of the card. We also have Persephone. She's taking on Hazuki. That is a Owen Hart quarterfinal tournament match, so we've got that tonight. Also, it looks like those are the only two matches I see, actually. Do I not have a Collision lineup? Where's the rest of the matches? That's all I see for Collision tonight are those two matches, but there's got to be something else. If you guys want to throw the card down in the chat there, feel free. I usually run through the Collision card, and for some reason today I forgot. But anyway, what we're going to do today, usually the order of which we talk about stuff, I usually start with news and then follow up with results. But since the news is a little bit light and there's some funny things to get into, I want to run through these Smackdown results from last night because there was, a pretty big upset in the King of the Ring tournament, and I want to talk about the Queen of the Ring tournament as well, and we had a big WWE title match announced last night that is going to take place 2 weeks from now on SmackDown, and there will be a stipulation. So I want to kind of get into all of that first, since that's kind of fresh in our minds. We had SmackDown last night, still 3 hours, by the way. It doesn't switch over to 2 hours for a couple of more weeks. I thought it was the beginning of June, but as I was watching some of the show back last night, I'm like, there's no way this was 2 hours. So it's still 3 and still long, and it wasn't, really that bad of a show. I like the way it started. I mean, Gunther came out as soon as the show began. Gunther just immediately shows up and just crashes the ringside area, destroys the announce desk, climbs up on the announce table, and he is pissed off about what went down at Clash in Italy, and he wants justice. He's yelling about his foot under the rope. My foot was under the rope, and I put it there on purpose, so I did not have to kick out, and everybody knows you don't count when the foot is under there, and I'm all pissed off, and I'm mad, and I'm freaking the fuck out, right? So out comes Cody Rhodes, and he says, dude, you're a 20-year veteran. You mean to tell me you've never had a controversial ending that left you with the short end of the stick before? This is kind of commonplace in what we do. So Cody is basically like, quit your bitching, and says, you know what? Fine, I don't care. You want to have a match? Let's have a match right now. Let's just do it now. So Gunther seems down, but out comes Sami Zayn to a decent reception in Italy. Every time he says, where are my ride or die fans at? Nobody says anything, and he got a pretty nice reaction from the crowd last night. I can't believe they're back in Italy. They've just been really hanging around over there, haven't they? So he comes out and he starts bitching about wanting a title shot and that he's never held the title, and Cody's like, dude, I don't have time for this. If you can't, in case you don't know, Sammy, and he points at Gunther, he goes, I'm a little bit busy right now. And that's when Gunther jumps in the ring, attacks Cody from behind. Sami Zayn gets into it. They all start brawling, and Cody goes for a suicide dive onto Gunther on the outside, but Gunther moves and Cody hits Sammy instead. Seems to be remorseful about it, but, Sammy is a little bit annoyed. So that's how that whole thing ended without any sort of announcement. The announcement for the title match wouldn't come until later on when Cody Rhodes was walking backstage. He's approached by Nick Aldis and says, hey, just talk to Gunther's people. Gunther's already left the building, but we talked to his people, and he wants to have a championship match in 2 weeks, and next week week, he's going to announce the stipulation. So Cody is cool with that. 2 weeks from now will be the WWE title on the line on SmackDown on television. And next week on SmackDown, Gunther will reveal what the condition or the stipulation is to that match. So the way it feels, because I thought that after Clash in Italy, it was probably just going to be Cody and Gunther again at Night of Champions. Now I'm starting to think that depending on what kind of stipulation this is, I don't even think it really matters. Whatever the stipulation is, I think we might see Sami Zayn affect that outcome of that match in 2 weeks. Now, we already had a title change on SmackDown this year. I mean, title changes on TV, world title changes on TV are rare as hell these days. Back in my day, in the 90s, in the Attitude Era, when I was going to shows, they happened every fucking week. But now it's very rare, and we've already had one of them this year alone. And for Cody's title when he beat McIntyre. So now you're going to turn around and do this again. I'd be really surprised if we saw a title change in 2 weeks, but we might. But since Sami Zayn has been so heavily involved in this, what I think is going to happen is he's going to affect the outcome of this. And he probably will help Cody retain somehow, even if he doesn't mean to. Whatever he does out there is probably going to be unintentional, I would think. He just wants to get involved, be a part of it, and he's going to wind up fucking over one of these two guys. So, maybe, you could use Sami as a way to, come out there and try to help Cody, and then he accidentally screws Cody. But it feels like Cody might just keep the title with more controversy, which the only flaw in my logic here is if Sami comes out and affects the outcome of a match, how are you going to justify what I'm about to say here? And maybe at Night of Champions, you do a 3-way with all 3 of them. So maybe in 2 weeks, you do the title match, Sami gets all involved, it's a big schmoz again, or somebody gets screwed, and then you make a triple threat for Night of Champions. The only problem with that is why would you reward Sami with a championship match in Saudi Arabia, where he's going to be very warmly received for interfering in another championship match. So I almost think that maybe the stipulation has to include Sami. Like maybe Gunther is like, Sami needs to be hung from the ring in a cage and he gets out and affects the match somehow. I don't know, but we're going to learn what that stipulation is next week, and it feels like it might turn into Cody keeping the title. Once again, you protect Gunther again. So, think about this. Gunther had his foot under the rope at Clash. Maybe in 2 weeks you get Sami involved and Gunther loses again, but he's kind of screwed over. Then you go to the triple threat at Night of Champions and Cody pins Sami Zayn. So you somehow are able to give Gunther 3 consecutive title matches that he loses while protecting him at the same time. That seems really difficult to do, but they could technically do it if the outcomes went down like that. Because one of my big questions when Gunther first attacked Cody and made his intentions known that he's coming after the title, I'm like, well, he's probably going to win it then. Because if they're just trying to give Cody a time-killing feud until he gets to SummerSlam to defend against whoever, I feel like they picked someone else other than Gunther. Why would you beat Gunther 3 times? So I feel like Gunther's either got to win the title or he's got to be severely screwed over, and then maybe the final match is a triple threat and then he's not even involved in the finish. Cody can just beat Sami and Cody can take the title into SummerSlam. It still feels like, to me anyway, that Cody and Roman are going to be champs going into SummerSlam unless WWE wants to make some hasty decision and take the belt off of Cody again. I don't know. But one thing about that idea that I do like is it puts Sami in Saudi Arabia ahead of next year's WrestleMania, and Sami getting a title shot in Saudi Arabia and falling short here, but then returning 9 months from now, 10 months from now, whatever it is, and winning the championship there at WrestleMania 43. So he's going to have his heartbreak here, and that's just going to fuel him or motivate him even more to really fight and claw his way to that championship. And then maybe next year he wins the Royal Rumble and then he wins the title at WrestleMania in Saudi Arabia. The only problem is that's a ways off. So you're talking about some serious long-term booking here, unless if we all had Sami Zayn on our mind to win the title in Saudi Arabia and WWE have different plans, maybe he wins the title at Night of Champions. Maybe they actually put the title on Sami Zayn in June instead of next April like we think. So it all remains to be seen, but I am curious. I'm not too concerned as much with Cody hanging onto the title as I am how are they going to justify beating Gunther 3 times. So we'll see how all of this shakes out, and if Cody not only survives the Smackdown match in 2 weeks, but then has to go and defend at Night of Champions. You got to imagine he's going to be flown to Saudi for that show. So Cody, at the very least, is going to be there, and he's probably going to have a title match. So it's going to have to probably include one or both of these guys. So I think I'm on the right mindset there in terms of what Cody might be doing for the rest of June. But then come July, we're going to have the King of the Ring winner decided by then. So we're going to know who that person is going to be. And from where I sit, it feels like it has to be a Raw person. We'll flash up the graphic here in a minute when we talk about Dom's match. But right now, it kind of feels like it's going to be a Raw guy winning the tournament, namely Seth Rollins, I think, is the or Obafemi. But when you look at the 3 out of the final 4, Seth has not had his match yet. I keep thinking that Monday's match against Breakker was a King of the Ring match. It's not. So Seth is going to advance. So you got to assume the final 4 is going to be Rollins, Oba, and Dom, and then one more. So that's looking pretty good for Monday Night Raw. It seems very unlikely that a SmackDown person, which would have to be Damian Priest or Finn Balor, right? Priest was in the match tonight. I forgot who was on the bottom end of the graphic. Let's take a look at it real quick in the King of the Ring. Royce Keys. So looking at that, unless Balor or Royce Keys wins their match and goes to and then win. It's got to be Balor or Royce Keys. They're the only SmackDown guys that are going to win. I'm sorry, Tala Tonga and Ricky Saints, they are not going into advance against Seth Rollins, unless Breakker screws him over or something like that. But it's going to be a Raw person. It's looking like winning the King of the Ring. So I feel like it's kind of safe to assume at this point that Roman will be defending his title against the King of the Ring winner, which means Cody Rhodes is going to be defending against someone on SmackDown. Is the Gunther and Sammy stuff going to carry into SummerSlam? Is it going to involve them somehow? Is it going to be Cody and Sammy for the title at SummerSlam? Is that what they're building towards? Cody has to get by Gunther first. But if Gunther comes out of this whole thing titleless, then what the fuck does Gunther do at SummerSlam? Who does he face? Is there anybody out there he can challenge to retire? To get himself, like maybe he's so distraught over being fucked over 3 times in 3 championship matches that he wants to take his frustrations out on somebody and retire them. R-Truth comes to mind, but Gunther and R-Truth at SummerSlam, I don't know. So maybe, I don't know who else you would put him with at SummerSlam. What do you do with Gunther at SummerSlam if he faces Cody in 2 weeks and fails, then goes to Night of Champions to have another match, possibly and likely, and then he loses, and then he's got the month of July, I suppose, to build up another opponent for SummerSlam, but who would it be? Is he going to take a step down and go, who the fuck is the U.S. champion right now? Why do I not know who the U.S. Oh, it's Trick. It's Tricky William. You're going to face Trick? What's he going to do? So I don't know what he will do. That's why I think Gunther has got to remain in the championship scene on SmackDown through SummerSlam. And we're going to talk about CM Punk later, too. He's got to factor in somewhere. I said after WrestleMania he should jump to SmackDown and allow Raw to be the land of the giants. Roman and Oba and Breakker, and at the time Gunther, but Gunther has since moved to SmackDown. So maybe Punk needs to make the move too. I was really hoping to get Punk and Cody at SummerSlam, but Punk's sitting on his ass getting all jacked, just waiting for creative. So let me know how you think all this shakes out with Cody and Sammy and Gunther, and if they are going to have a match, if any of them are going to have a match with each other at SummerSlam, or if this all ends at Night of Champions. And if Gunther, might actually come away with the title here. I think he might. So that's how SmackDown opened last night. Pretty solid way, I think, to open the show, because Gunther was pretty pissed off. And, of course, they were back in Italy, and the crowd, on the European tour has been tremendous every week. So they've really been helping the quality of the show as well. So we had our first match of the night last night on SmackDown was the women's quarterfinal Queen of the Ring match, Raquel Rodriguez picking up the win and advancing over JC Jane, Kiana James, and Bayley. So she now advances. After the match, Kiana and Julia break up. Kiana's yelling at Julia. Julia kicks her ass, throws her out of the ring, and the two of them are finally done. They've been teasing this for a while, and you can tell that WWE has big plans for Kiana. Sometimes you can just tell. I think the first time that she actually popped in my head as someone, I was kind of not giving her enough credit. Like, because when she got called up from NXT, she just came in, and then she was like gone for a year, right? She was injured, and now she's back. So I kind of forgot she even existed. But there was that little appearance of hers in the Royal Rumble, and I was like, I guess I wasn't giving her credit. She's great, and you can just tell that WWE has very, very high hopes for her. I think they split her and Julia, not to push Julia, but to push her. So she is going to be a big deal. She hasn't won a lot of matches. One or two, maybe, but it doesn't matter. You can tell that WWE is high on her. You can always tell when they're high on people. They're high on Royce Keys, too. So Kiana, even though she came up short here and got her ass kicked by Julia, this is actually a good thing for her to end that alliance, and they can start doing with Kiana what they intend on doing with her, because I think she's going to be a big part of their women's championship future, for sure. So after that, too, it should be noted that later on backstage, JC Jane and Fatal Influence are upset about the attack, and Kathy Kelly tries to interview them, and they tell her to fuck off, and then they stumble across Paige and Brie Bella backstage, thank God, so we don't have to hear the fucking song, and they approach them, and of course Brie says something snotty, and they just kick the shit out of Paige and Brie Bella, so that happened, and now that means that Raquel Rodriguez has advanced in the Queen of the Ring. Now let's take a look at the Queen of the Ring bracket here. We've got Io Sky, we saw advance on Monday Night Raw, and last night, Raquel Rodriguez advances. So if you look at this, it's very Judgment Day heavy as well, because over in the men's bracket, that's the wrong one. Over in the men's bracket, no, what am I doing? Sorry, that's our watch along for tomorrow. I'm trying to give you this one here. The men's bracket, you got Dominic Mysterio over there. So between Dominic and Raquel, and don't forget, we have Raquel Rodriguez, there's a hell of a lot of Judgment Day involved here. So Io Sky, I cannot see her losing to Raquel Rodriguez. But when you look at the other bracket over there, we've been bitching about this ever since they announced the brackets. Liv Morgan being in this has got to be the dumbest fucking thing I've ever seen. It's so annoying, and it makes no sense. And I guess the only reason they're doing this is because Morgan, they're really pushing hard that she's going to be the queen and that Dominic is going to be the king and queen of the ring. And they're going to get their crowns fitted. And she was, doing a poor job of saying this stuff on Monday. And she did it again last night, where she seems to be overlooking the fact that there are other Judgment Day members in this tournament. And last Monday, there were still two of them, or Roxanne, had just lost. Raquel picked up the win. And I think both times Raquel kind of checked her and like, hey, hello, I'm in this thing too. And then, of course, Liv's like, one of us is going to win it. That's all that really matters. So Liv is just being a huge fucking asshole about this whole thing. And she thinks that she has got a clear path to the finals of the Queen of the Ring, and that she's going to have her crown, and she's just going to challenge herself at SummerSlam, I guess. But her involvement in the Queen of the Ring is just silly. And I think that the reason they're probably doing it is because whenever that match happens, I guess it's going to happen Monday on Raw, maybe Stephanie Vaquer shows up and screws Liv Morgan. That's the way it's got to be, I feel like. So the way I feel like it's going to go with the King and Queen of the Ring, a Raw wrestler wins the men's tournament. A women's wrestler wins I'm sorry, SmackDown wrestler wins the women's tournament. So at this point, I think it's going to be Rollins and Charlotte. That's what it feels like to me. Rollins versus Roman and Charlotte versus Rhea Ripley. And not Liv Morgan. I think when she has her opening round match, she will get screwed over by Stephanie, or she will advance, getting her a little bit closer, and then she'll be screwed in Saudi Arabia. We will see. But I do not want Liv going to the finals. I think that would be silly, and it just doesn't really make a lot of sense there. But Raquel Rodriguez, for now, has advanced, and we will see if it might come down to a Liv and Raquel final. But Raquel winning the Queen of the Ring would also be interesting because, that would line her up for a challenge against Liv Morgan as well, but it's feeling more like that's going to be Stephanie Vaquer. And also, you got to think about Io Sky. So what if it's Io Sky and Charlotte in the finals, in the women's finals? I know I keep pulling this up, but let's look at that again just so I can check it. So, yeah, maybe Io Sky and Charlotte seems pretty likely. But, over in that other bracket, Morgan, Lynch, Bliss, and Green, are we setting up for a Becky Lynch and Charlotte semifinal at Night of Champions? And then maybe Charlotte and Io in the finals? That's the way it's kind of feeling at this point. But anyway, lots to think about as it relates to the King and the Queen of the Ring tournaments. And they will pick up again this Monday, and we will see where we stand after Monday's Raw. So then we go backstage, and Sami Zayn is approaching Nick Aldis to complain about everything that happened out there earlier, and then Nick just says, dude, you got to stay out of Cody and Gunther's business. Just stay the hell out of it, and I'm too busy to deal with you right now because I have a meeting with somebody very important. And Sami's like, oh, who's more important than me? And then in walks Chad Gable. So Chad Gable is there. Him and Aldis go behind closed doors, and they have a little meeting. Later on, we see Chad Gable again. He approaches Rey Fenix to apologize to him, to apologize for mocking Lucha Libre, and he talked about their WrestleMania match from last year. And it blows my mind how time travels. That's how long the El Grande Americano shit has been going on? Over a year and 3 months or longer? I thought this whole thing had been going on for 6 months. It's been going on for a year longer than I thought. When he said the WrestleMania match, I'm like, El Grande and Phoenix wrestled at WrestleMania? No, they didn't. And I'm like, oh, the WrestleMania before? They did? He was El Grande at WrestleMania 41? That's crazy to me, like how quickly time passes. I'm still looking at this whole El Grande Americano shit as something that's like brand new, and it's been going on for a while. So when he was apologizing to Rey Fenix about their WrestleMania match last year, I'm like, I don't even remember that match, much less that this whole gimmick has been going on for that long. Wow, that's what happens when you get old. I swear, like years go by like days when you get old. This shit is just flying by in my life now. When you're young, everything goes by slow. When you're old, everything goes by fast. And I cannot believe how much time has passed. I swear I thought the whole El Grande thing has been 6 months old. So anyway, shows you how much I know. So Gable apologizing to Rey Fenix is interesting because, number one, you're kind of wondering, is Gable going to be on SmackDown? But I don't think a lot of us want him to be on SmackDown. A lot of us want to be on Raw. I saw a lot of the same opinion after the Mask versus Mask match. With him and El Grande in AAA. A lot of people were hoping that this would be the springboard to lead Chad Gable back to WWE and perhaps beat Penta for the Intercontinental title. And I think that's what a lot of people want to see. So the fact that Gable came to apologize to Phoenix, and Phoenix is like, I'm not the only one you have to apologize to. And then him having a little bit of conversation with Aldis, I feel like he'll do the same thing on Raw. He'll have a conversation with Pierce, and then maybe he'll approach Penta and also apologize to him, and then ultimately decide to stay on Monday Night Raw. And I think that needs to be your Intercontinental title program immediately. Unfortunately, I don't even think you could wait till SummerSlam. Like, I would love for Chad Gable and Penta to have a barn burner of a match at SummerSlam for the Intercontinental title. The only problem with that is it is 2 months away. You would have to do 8 weeks of build between Penta and Gable, and I don't know if Gable, I assume, feels like anyway he's going to be a babyface. So with babyface Gable and babyface Penta, I don't know how much, like, there's not enough meat on that bone to give you 8 weeks of build between those two. Now, Gable could stay heel. He could apologize to Penta maybe in the ring on Raw and then turn on him. And then you got a heel Gable. That could give you some extra material if you have to book a long program out until SummerSlam. But WWE probably wouldn't wait that long. I think they would probably just book it at Night of Champions or something, or maybe even on Monday Night Raw. But Gable, after the success of that mask versus mask match that they even aired, I think it was last Monday, right? After the Italy Raw, they aired the match in its entirety on Netflix following Raw. Like, they just threw that shit together in like a day. You know, I remember back in, because WWE has a history of this, when they get really proud of a match, you know, they like to whack off to it, and that's totally fine. I remember back in In Your House, one of my favorite matches of all time, my favorite Bret Hart versus British Bulldog match. You guys know, we've watched it, we've talked about it, we've reviewed it. Bret Hart, Davey, In Your House, Seasons Beatings. This would have been December of 1995, and that match was so good, especially for the time. Bret came off a tremendously good match with Diesel, winning the title at Survivor Series, turns right around and faces Davey in a bloody, bloody match in Hershey, and I think it vastly exceeded expectations, so much so that they played the match in its entirety the next night on Raw. It was either the next night or the week after. But they were proud of it. They were proud of that match. And they wanted to give it some additional airtime so more people could see it. And they did the same thing with the mask versus mask match. So off of the success of that, you cannot have Gable farting around for 3 months until you decide how to bring him back. Capitalize on this momentum that he's gained for himself and this tremendous match. And finally, you know, push this fucking guy. How old is he now? Got to be old now. You know, like, they've had him for so long. We've all been, you know, seeing the parallels between him and Kurt Angle and what a great worker he is. And we were all expecting him to win the IC title from Gunther a couple of years ago, and that fell short. And the Shorty G shit, like, he has just not been treated with the respect I think that he deserves as an athlete. So if you cannot capitalize on this for Gable, then there's just no hope for him. You know, granted, you know, given his age, it's going to be hard to now make this guy the face of your company for the next 10 years. But he's definitely world champion material, and at the very least, intercontinental champion material. So hopefully this results somehow in Gable beating Penta for the IC title. And if you can find a way to stretch it to SummerSlam, that's where I would prefer it. Do it there in front of a crowd like that. You know, an Intercontinental Championship change at SummerSlam is very dear to my childhood heart, as I saw that happen in the first, First 5. 88 was Honky beating, or Warrior beating Honky. 89 was Warrior beating Rude. 90 was Von Erich beating Hennig. 91 was Brett beating Perfect. And then 92 was Bulldog beating Brett. And then finally in 93... there was no title change, but they picked it up again in 94 with Razor beating Diesel. So 6 out of the first 7 SummerSlams had Intercontinental title changes on them. Would be a nice little throwback. So if you can stretch it to SummerSlam, do it, but that might be too far off. Also, last night on Smackdown, we had a lot of screen time for Royce Keys. Although he did lose here. He faces Tala Tonga. You know, I can't believe WWE's giving us Royce Keys and Tala Tonga for free instead of saving it for WrestleMania. So we had this match. A lot of help from the MFTs. Tama Tonga's out there. Solo Sikoa is out there. And Tala winds up choke slamming Royce Keys for the win with a lot of help from his boys. After the match, they start kicking his ass, and that's when R-Truth comes out to try to help Royce Keys, but Damian Priest follows him out there, starts yelling at R-Truth, his, you know, co-holder partner of the Tag Team Championships, and he's like, "You always doing this. You're not cleared. You can't get in the ring." And he literally just drags R-Truth away from the ringside area, leaving Keys all alone in the ring to get beat down. So then later on backstage, a few segments later, Solo's back there sitting on a crate. I'm sorry, Keys is. And Solo approaches Royce Keys and points out that he's got nobody. You got no friends here, man. Jacob is now shaking the hand of Roman and kneeling beside him. Priest will not allow R-Truth to help you out. Priest doesn't like you. If you can't tell, we're kind of your only hope. You need someone watching your back. So it feels like he might actually join them. I hope he doesn't, but he might have to initially, before there's another split there. But I'm enjoying what I'm seeing, even though Royce lost. I'm happy that WWE appears to really have a lot of creative plans for him. He's been on TV virtually every week, and in some cases, it's been multiple segments. So they have a story for him that they're in the process of executing, and at this point, that's the best you can hope for, for some guys. So Royce Keys is in a story. They're giving him screen time. They're giving him matches nearly every week, and that is a good thing. That's a good thing. It also should be noted that later on, backstage as well, the War Raiders return. The War Raiders recently won the AAA tag team titles, so they show up with their AAA belts to talk to R-Truth. And, I think they made it known that they want to be contenders for the tag team title as well. And R-Truth insists that he's never met these guys before. He doesn't know who they are. Who the fuck are you? So R-Truth has no idea. So that was kind of funny. And the War Raiders are back. So that's all I have to say about that. After that, we had a Rhea Ripley promo. She came out to basically put Jade Cargill behind her. She wants to be done with this whole thing and move on to her next challenger, which, like I said, I believe will be the winner of the Queen of the Ring tournament, and it'll probably be Charlotte. And that's when Charlotte comes out. Charlotte shows up, says that she intends on winning Queen of the Ring, and then Tiffany Stratton shows up as well with her United States title and lets Ripley know that she wants that belt. Then Jade and crew show up, Jade, Meechin, and B-Fab. They start talking smack. All this comes out to basically make your impromptu match. This is your typical run-of-the-mill segment that devolves into an impromptu match. We see this shit every week on both shows. So Aldis basically makes a tag team match. Rhea Ripley, by the way, is not cleared. So the tag match is going to have to be Charlotte Flair and Tiffany teaming up to take on Jade Cargill and Meechin. And B-Fab would sit this one out. Now, Jade and Meechin beat Charlotte and Tiffany. Jade with a pretty cool counter. Tiffany goes up for her moonsault. Jade comes from behind her and grabs her in jaded position and hits her with the jaded and gets the win. So that's a big win, pinning the United States champion. Heading into her Queen of the Ring match, I guess, next week. She's got her final either on Raw or next week on SmackDown. We will see. And Charlotte and Tiffany, as a team, that was going to be tough to work because of the history between the two. And also, Tiffany has got this thing going on with Chelsea Green. And later, they talk, and Chelsea's like, why didn't you tell me you were out there? I would have been out there by your side. And Tiffany's like, I didn't really need it. It's okay. I didn't really need you out there. And then later on, Chelsea would go out there to face Lash Legend. I think she said, Tiffany, well, that's okay because I know that if I need you, you'll be there for me. And then she went out and got squashed by Lash Legend with no Tiffany at all. So Tiffany did not show up. She does not give a shit about Chelsea Green at all. So that's kind of funny. And also, it should be noted that we had another Blake Monroe vignette because apparently she's coming soon. But guys, I already said this a couple weeks ago. I saw her come. I saw Blake Monroe. She came. She's already came. I watched her come. But right after that, they're back to running vignettes that she's coming. How much can she possibly come? How many times can she came is what I want to know. Because she comes, and then they say she's coming again, and then apparently, eventually, she will come. I don't understand. But this new vignette at least singles someone out. Tiffany Stratton. That's kind of interesting. Blake Monroe, her entire vignette was about Tiffany Stratton. It's like looking in a mirror. We've said that before. I remember when Mariah May first kind of turned up and Tiffany Stratton first kind of turned up, and they fucking look alike. They kind of have the same gimmick in a way. They look like two Barbie dolls. just two hot blonde women. And both are pretty damn good in the ring. I'm a little bit surprised that this is her starting out program, Blake Monroe. You know, in a way, I'm kind of hoping that maybe Tiffany loses the United States title, because I just don't think you need to bring Blake Monroe to the main roster and then immediately give her the United States title. And I would have built to a feud with Tiffany, because that's a natural feud. And everybody have always viewed those two as the AEW and WWE counterparts to each other. And that's a match and a program and a feud, quite frankly, that I would wait to do. I would get Blake on the roster first and then have some run-ins and teases. You know, her vignette is just directly straight calling out Tiffany Stratton. So I feel like we're going to have to get Tiffany Stratton and Blake Monroe at SummerSlam. And it might be for Tiffany's championship. But Jade beat her. You know, maybe Jade's going to target that belt, since she's clearly probably out of the world title picture now. I don't know, but I did find the Blake Monroe vignette calling out Tiffany kind of interesting. Also, last night on SmackDown, Carmelo Hayes and Ricky Saints were at it again. They've had quite the series of matches here that has never really had a good, clear, definitive winner. And last night was no different. Ricky Saints got the win, rolling up and pinning Melo with a big old handful of tights. So Saints over Melo, their issue is not done. Also, we know that Danhausen is in the middle of his science experiment at these arenas, and The Miz is doing like a FaceTime with Kit Wilson, and he's walking through the hallway talking to him. He stumbles across Danhausen's lab, and he's in there trying to touch everything, and Danhausen's like, don't touch that, don't touch that. And Miz is like, what, this? And he pushes something over, and Danhausen's like, don't touch that. And he goes, definitely don't touch that. You don't want to touch that. And of course, Miz touches it, and he gets electrocuted. So Miz dies on SmackDown, which at least WWE, they're paying him a lot. You know, I mean, that's another thing WWE should maybe consider in the future, that when they have a contract that they want to shed, you know, instead of doing a release, you could just kill them. You know, instead of having to release somebody and put it out on social media and make them sad and make the fans sad, just kill them. Seems like a simple solution. Just electrocute them. You have a little room that when you're done with a wrestler and you don't want them there anymore, you open up the closet door, you throw them in, they get electrocuted and die. Trapdoor opens, bodies fall, big mass grave. Solve a lot of problems, you know, and it'll make things a lot easier, you know. Paperwork might be a little harder, but, you know, for the most part, at least get out of having to pay that money now. So and maybe one day Tony Khan thinks about killing his wrestlers too. I don't know. So far, WWE's the only one doing it. In the main event last night of SmackDown, this was kind of an upset. King of the Ring quarterfinal, Dominic Mysterio defeating Tricky William, Damian Priest, and Braun Breaker. Braun Breaker, we were assuming would win here, and you were going to set up Oba Femi and Braun Breaker semifinal match. That's when I pitched the idea of, Brock could come screw Oba and help Breaker win, and that sets up Oba and Brock at SummerSlam. But they put Dominic over here. They really want you to think that it's going to be King Dom and Queen Liv. And as much as I love those two, I don't think I can stomach that as a wrestling fan. King Dom, I'm fine with. I'm not fine with Queen Liv because she's already champion, and that whole idea completely pisses me off. So Dominic gets the win here. We had a low blow. Liv Morgan gets involved, comes in the ring, low blows Damian Priest, allowing Dom to go to the top and hit the frog splash for the win. A lot of help from JD McDonough as well. So Dom had big-time help from the Judgment Day to advance here. And what this means, like we just showed a little while ago, this means that it's going to be Dominic and Oba Femi in the semifinal match, and this is all going to go down at Night of Champions. So I'm wondering, would they really fly? We talked about this too. I said, when they first announced the brackets, I said, could Oba even get out of the first round? Because if he's not going to win the King of the Ring, then somebody needs to screw him over. And the only person that can really screw him over would be Brock Lesnar. Which means, would they really fly Brock Lesnar all the way to Saudi Arabia to do a run-in? Based on the person that we know Brock to be, you know, it's like, fuck that. But then again, if you're getting paid very, very handsomely and you get to fly over there and you don't even have to do anything really that hard, you don't even have to match, you just have to do a quick run and F5 a bitch and then leave. It's a pretty easy night, to make your, couple $100,000, whatever he's going to make for that appearance. So it's not really out of the question. It just seems crazy to fly him all the way over there. Also, what would his motivation be to screw Oba? It's not like he lost at Clash in Italy. He won. He should be feeling pretty good. Why would he turn back around and poke the bear unless Brock has a personal desire to break the tie? Maybe it's sticking in Brock's crawl. I don't like that we're 1-1. I want to beat you again. And this is his way of coming out and saying that. So they could do that, and that's kind of feels likely, and that would be pretty funny to see Dominic Mysterio beat Oba Femi. Think about how Dom would be bragging. Only 2 men have beat Oba Femi, Brock Lesnar and me. And that would be a great, springboard into what I still hope is a Money in the Bank victory for Dominic later on this summer. I'm hoping that he wins the briefcase. He's been my pick for about a year now. So I really want him to do that. And if he were to beat Oba Femi, that would be hilarious. But Oba winning, first of all, you're robbing us of Oba and Breaker. And if Rollins makes it to the finals, like I'm kind of assuming he is, that puts Rollins versus someone in the finals. And Rollins versus Dominic, I don't think looks as sexy as Rollins versus Oba Femi. But, if Oba wins the tournament, then he's got to face Roman. That's what I wanted all along for Oba, but that was before Brock came back. After WrestleMania, I was like, well, the only thing you can do with Oba now is either have Brock come back and work with him again or put the belt on him. Those are the only 2 options. So Brock came back. So now we're believing, all of us in our heads have kind of got this idea that it's going to be Brock and Oba again at SummerSlam. So if it is, how do you get there? Oba can't just lose on his own and then decide to call out Brock. I feel like Brock's got to come screw him. So I guess we're probably going to see that, unless Rollins, I don't think it's going to be Rollins and Oba and then Rollins beats him clean. I just can't see that happening either. I mean, granted, Rollins would have to need a big win to, head into SummerSlam to face Roman. But right now it feels like that's what I said the night of Clash in Italy, even before the King of the Ring brackets, I think, were released. I mentioned that Roman and Rollins feels like it could be possible for SummerSlam. So we will see. That is your SmackDown in a nutshell. Like I said, this week Raw is in France, so it will be airing early. We will be here for a review of Monday Night Raw on Monday afternoon at some point. And as you guys saw last week, we were here for a review this past Monday as well, where we saw Oba Femi advance and Seth Rollins defeat Braun Breaker in the main event. And it should be noted, because I accidentally popped it on the screen here twice earlier, never told you guys about it. Before we get in our Dynamite quick recap, I want to let you guys know what to expect tomorrow. We are going to be back for our classic watch-along. We're not going to do a pay-per-view. We're going to do a Raw and a Nitro again. Last week, we tried out a new idea on Monday night. Normally, the watch-alongs happen on Sunday, so tomorrow's will be tomorrow, where we watch a Raw and a Nitro episode from the same week. The only problem is our library is limited. Netflix does not have all the Raws, and YouTube does not have all the Nitros. So I'm going through both playlists trying to look at weeks that match up. And this past Monday, we did September 22nd, 1997, the night Goldberg debuted on Nitro, and the night Austin stunned Vince in Madison Square Garden on Raw. Tomorrow, we're going to watch this one, February 24th, 1997. You've got the NWO on Nitro trying to convince Sting to join the group. Look at that shot right there of those 4 WWF guys. Macho Man, Diesel, Razor Ramon, and the Hulkster all in WWE, or I'm sorry, all in WCW. And then in WWE that night for Raw, they went back to the Manhattan Center, and that's the night that ECW invaded Raw. So you had the NWO on WCW Nitro, and you had the BWO on Monday Night Raw. That was a really fun night. I remember watching in the Manhattan Center, I think a good portion of WWE's roster was doing an overseas tour, so they were a little bit light. So that's why they brought in the ECW guys. And that night, the return of the Legion of Doom to WWE as well. So tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific, we're going to watch WCW Nitro and then WWE Raw, both from February 24th, 1997. The link is up on the channel right now. Join us tomorrow because that one is going to be fun. Sorry, I meant to mention that earlier on when I was doing my gum flapping. But anyway, let's move on real quick to our next order of business. I just want to run through real quick. We're not going to spend as much time on Dynamite as we did on Smackdown, but I do want to talk about this past week's Dynamite because we got a tournament going on over there as well. Of course, it's the Owen Hart tournament. Now, we also had an AEW World title match, a AEW TNT title match, and a couple of Owen tournament matches. So a lot was going down on Dynamite this week. I thought it was a damn good show. I was asking you guys on Wednesday, I was working. I said, how's Dynamite? And a lot of people chimed in, said it was great. So I'm like, good. I'm going to watch it when I get home. And I did. And it was tremendous. MJF and Roosh was a great match. I knew it would be. I was just hoping both guys would come out of this thing in one piece. And MJF may not have. He did hurt his leg or his knee. I think he suffered a knee injury in this match. Word is he's going to be fine. He's not going to miss any time. But he did hyperextend it. It's a bit swollen, so he's a little bit slow. I think they even pulled him from an indie event this weekend just so he could heal up. But the match was just brutal, man. It was funny when the doctor tried to get involved. I think this followed... I remember Roosh hitting Max with like a straight jacket pile driver on the apron. And after that, the doc kind of comes out and says that neither guy can continue. He's advising the referee to stop the match, and Justin Roberts even starts to get on the mic, but that's when Roosh comes in and headbutts the doctor, who just takes a huge bump, and the match just resumes. So no other doctor ran out there, or they didn't. Once the doctor got headbutted and taken out, his ruling doesn't matter anymore, and the match continued. And, Roosh is a legitimate tough guy. So, seeing Max in there, kind of hanging with him and taking it and seeing the respect that you can tell Roosh has for him. I enjoyed. I mean, it was brutal to watch. I mean, I felt sore when the match was over, but these guys are studs. Roosh is a stud and Max is 30 years old. He's so fucking young. So you can beat the shit out of each other when you're that age. You'll recover just fine. And Max does get the win here. He locks in a crossface onto Roosh, who basically just passes out, and the referee has to stop the match, and MJF retains. So he retains the title there, and he's going to continue the beatdown on Roosh after the match. He's going to hit him with his triple B, and that's when Mark Briscoe hits the ring to save Roosh from the belt spot. Mark Briscoe would then hang around to have a match with the crazy-ass Lio Rush, who I'm liking more and more every week. I can't remember if I mentioned this last week or if I mentioned it recently on social media, but I think Lio Rush should be like AEW's version of Danhausen, just like a darker version, because AEW, to be completely fair, made a lot of mistakes with Danhausen. I think they did him wrong a little bit, and I'm really happy to see his success in WWE. I think AEW really missed a huge opportunity with him, especially with what you see he's doing in merch sales and stuff in WWE right now. They should have known better there. So I think they kind of dropped the ball a little bit on Danhausen and cost themselves a lot of money doing that. But now you've got this Lio Rush character, which is weird as all hell, don't get me wrong. I am intrigued by it because it is different, and I do respect anybody that wants to try something. Wrestling, there's so much wrestling. You got plenty of time to throw shit on the wall and see if it sticks. And Lio has come up with this, I guess, gimmick, whatever it is, that he's unimaginably dedicated to. And it's silly as all fuck, but it's also a little dark. And when he came through last week, I think I did talk about this, but he came through the Conglomerations interview with that umbrella going like, yeah, like that is your guy. There's a t-shirt right there. Lio Rush holding a little multicolored umbrella. Put that shit on AEW shop. I'll buy one. And so maybe, Danhausen is so cartoony, he's not scary at all. He appeals to children. He's got a little Danhausen mobile. He puts curses on you. Even his experiment with the fucking dead body of Baron Corbin in there, that's not even scary. It's all hokey and fun. It's fun. It's fun. It's not like creepy or scary or anything like that. And Lio Rush is also fun, but he's got that creepy vibe to him. And apparently, like, if you sit still, he can't see you. So, AEW having a darker, but also equally hilarious kind of comedy character backstage. I think he could be the AEW counterpart to Danhausen in WWE, kind of like the way R-Truth was for a while when AEW had their hands on Danhausen. So I think AEW made mistakes with Danhausen that they could possibly make up for here with Lio Rush. So Briscoe beats Lio Rush, the crazy-ass Lio Rush, and after the match, he cuts an amazing promo on MJF. He talks about his brother's death. He talks about how much he hates MJF and that he got together with his boys in the conglomeration and everything was great because MJF was gone, but then he came back and all that hate got brought right back up and he wants a shot at the title. And it was a tremendous promo. I felt like it's like Billy Bean Moneyball stuff because Mark Briscoe, I feel like, can connect with you in a similar way on the mic that someone like a CM Punk can. I'm not saying they're the same on the mic. They're very different on the mic, but there's that connection. There's that they seem genuine. When they speak, it's not acting. They're not the promo doesn't sound like something they learned in promo class. There's a realism to it. There's a way that they connect that just up-and-coming wrestlers who are taught to cut promos in an extremely formulaic way. These are the type of things you don't hear out of the mouths of a CM Punk or a Mark Briscoe, and you're getting Mark Briscoe for a hell of a lot more money than CM Punk. And I think Briscoe, when he wants to, can deliver a promo that, is as near as poignant or memorable as Punk can do, and you can get him for a fraction of the price. So that was a great promo on Wednesday night. Now, I feel like they're setting up Briscoe versus MJF at Forbidden Door because later on, Renee Paquette would go interview MJF. He's sitting in one of them like ice bathtubs. And he basically just says, no title match for you. You're a loser and I'm not giving you one. So they're going to stall and eventually the match will probably be made for Forbidden Door, right? I mean, even though the door isn't really that forbidden because they're both in AEW, I feel like that's the match they're going to do with Max. So we will see. After that, we had, I fucking love Tekla. I love her. She's so good. Another one, like I point to these promos. Her promo style is just different. She comes off extremely comfortable on the mic, very natural. I think that's the word I was looking for, other than genuine. Natural. They come off natural. Punk seems natural and genuine. Briscoe seems natural and genuine. And Tekla does too. She's not cutting, because you can see it in wrestlers. You see it mostly in WWE more than anybody anywhere else. But there's nothing worse than, especially nowadays with the young wrestlers coming up, they're taught to cut promos in promo classes, and a lot of them, it's a lot of the same stuff, same type of cadence, same type of wording, same type of, especially with the women, they got, it's always the little head thing. And it's just, nothing feels natural. Nothing feels like this is what you would be saying to someone if you were in a real argument. That is kind of what I'm talking about. Like where, Punk and Briscoe and even Tekla, you could see someone like talking like that in a real argument where, but not, who's a good example? One of them Fatal Influence women or something like that, or whatever. Just a completely different type of way of connecting to the audience. And Tekla is out there talking smack. She's got her Sisters of Sin with her. She claims that Sky Blue's going to win the Owen. Maybe. I don't think so. And then she says, obviously they're setting up something here for Forbidden Door because she said she will burn down Stardom if anybody from that promotion shows up in AEW. And then they got a ladder out there and she climbs the ladder where they have the big Forbidden Door graphic and she spits on the Stardom logo. So I have no idea who's even over there. I don't watch Stardom. So who are they setting up to come confront Tekla? Tekla said she might even go over there if they have to. But obviously, Tekla's going to work with someone from Stardom at Forbidden Door. I just really don't know who. You guys probably do better than me. After that, on Wednesday, we had Andrade picking up basically an enhancement squash win over DK Vandu. Andrade motions that he wants a title shot as well, but Don Callis shows up with Jake Doyle and kind of interrupts Andrade's party there, and he announces the newest member of the Callis family, Kevin Knight. And when he introduces him, his teeth fall out again. It's already happened to him once before, but he just basically spit his teeth. He's got some false teeth or something, and they came out of his mouth. And excuse me while I go take care of my cat. There we go. Jesus. Tito, come here. There you go. Tito was going nuts out there. I had to go wrangle him. Thank you for that. Did I mess up my shit? All right, I think we're good. Anyway, so Don Callis spits out his teeth, introducing Kevin Knight as the newest member of the Callis family. And that's when... What is on me here? That is when Andrade clearly seems not cool with this announcement, kind of shakes his head. Kevin Knight comes to the ring, big embrace with Don Callis, and now this family is even larger. I still think it's a good move for Kevin Knight now that he's a heel. This will give him TV time and give him storyline opportunities. I think of all the factions for him to join, this is probably the best one, even though there's 49 members of this faction. Still, probably where he should be. And, of course, he had an advertised TNT Championship match on Wednesday against Speedball that we've been looking forward to because we knew it would be good, and it was. Jesus. I think the craziest part was the finish. Damn. So it's, what is it? Speedball is up on the top with Knight. I don't know, he's going to hit him with a Hurricane Karana or something. Jake Doyle distracts the referee. Callis jumps up on the apron, takes out Speedball's legs, and he falls and basically crotches himself on the top rope. And then Kevin Knight picks him up, and I get what this can only be described as an avalanche fall from grace. Like, imagine taking a razor's edge from somebody while they're standing on the top rope and just coming flat on your back. I don't know how Bailey took that bump without breaking his back in half. I mean, it was the sickest looking shit. Obviously, that was going to be the end of the match. I think Knight hit his little finisher thing right after that for the win to retain the TNT title. But goddamn, if you guys haven't seen that, like, do I have the name of that move right? It was basically like Oba's fall from grace, but imagine doing that while standing on the top rope. And the way Bailey just came down he got his arms down, but it was just a flat back bump from 17 feet in the air. Fucking nuts, man. So that blew my mind, and I'm loving this Kevin Knight. My God. I love Speedball too, but I kind of think Speedball took that bump as punishment for whatever the fuck he was wearing last week. I've dreamt 3 times about it. I can't get that outfit out of my head. It's awful, man. And I love Speedball, but no, you can never wear that again. It's been bothering me for a week. But anyway, that's what you get, Speedball, for wearing something like that. You take a loss, and I really genuinely hope he's okay. There's no concussion there. Obviously, he landed as safely as he could, but when you're falling from that height, God damn. Backstage, we got an interview with the Dogs. Of course, they took out Cope and Christian last week, mocked their 5-second pose, which I take personally because I had flash photography, and I took a lot of pictures of Edge and Christian with my flash photography during their 5-second poses with my yellow Kodak cameras, even though on Dynamite last week, Copeland passed out green ones. I had the yellow ones. And one of these days, I will bust out I have a box about this big full of pictures, all taken with disposable cameras from shows in the Attitude Era. And you can't hardly see anything because they're blurry and their lighting's terrible. My thumb is over the fucking thing. Technology sucked back then compared to now. But the Dogs had their kazoos, and they seem really happy and proud about what they did to Cope and Christian. The Bucks show up. They want a match, but of course the Dogs aren't really interested. And shout out to the Bucks, who I guess did a live stream the other day on YouTube, raised a bunch of money for, I believe, ALS. And, of course, we all love Rebel. We're going to talk about Rebel here in just a minute. And another big thing that happened on Wednesday was the lovely lady you see on the screen there, the return of Mercedes Moné. She did turn out to be the wild card in the Owen tournament. Of course, Willow Nightingale, she had to forfeit the TBS title due to injury and got knocked out of the Owen. So they announced a wild card. I didn't really think it would be Mercedes because I thought that Mercedes, if she was going to be the wild card, she would come back at the pay-per-view or something. But they brought her back on Dynamite. She came out to a pretty nice ovation. She took on Alex Windsor and beat Alex Windsor, not surprising. And after that was over, she took the belt. She took the Owen Hart belt with her because she did win the Owen last year and just took it with her and left. So, I mean, she is the defending champion, I suppose. So I guess it's hers until she loses it. But that was pretty funny. And now based on the Owen and the brackets, I don't have it up on screen here for you, but it feels pretty obvious that we're getting Mercedes Moné and Athena in the finals. Now, Mercedes beat Athena, right? Did Athena ever get that win back or not? I would love for Athena to win the Owen Hart tournament. I would prefer her to win the Owen Hart tournament. But they might also be setting up for Mercedes Moné and Tekla at All In, which would also be good. So Mercedes could be your first and possibly only two-time Owen Hart winner or repeat champion, I suppose. Right now, she's got a good chance to do it. She looked really good. It was good to see her on Wednesday night. I'm a Mercedes fan. I always have. She has good matches. She's good. She's a great pro wrestler, and she's been missed. And that whole belt collector thing has now finally run its course. She is now back. Didn't really have a new attitude or anything, but she is back, and she's going to be doing big things, definitely, at All In, whether it be for the championship or not. Now, we mentioned, before we get in the main event here, we did mention Willow Nightingale having to forfeit the TBS title, right? Well, they have announced a survival of the fittest match, which I don't know what this is. They ran these in Ring of Honor, apparently, but I'm not aware of how they're set up or how they work. You can't really do a tournament because you're already in the middle of your Owen tournament, so you got to figure out a different way to crown your new TBS champion, and we have to wait a month. And guess where that new TBS champion is going to be crowned? Right here in San Diego on July 1st. Here's the problem. I don't think I can go to Dynamite because I fly to Hawaii the next day. So that's going to be really tough to pull off. I don't know what my schedule is going to be like. I probably need to work up until I leave. I said, I'm like, next time the Dynamite comes here, I'm going to the show. I'm gonna hit up some wrestlers, see if I can get my ass backstage or something. I'm going, but I don't know if I can make that show or not. So I'm gonna maybe hold out hope that I actually go. But I don't think it's going to be possible. I don't want to. Traveling is hard, and I'm going to be going to Hawaii for a week, so I need to just be prepared for that. But that match is going to be happening, or that survival of the fittest, I don't know if it's a series of matches or what it is, but that is the night that we're going to crown a new TBS champion, July 1st on Dynamite, survival of the fittest. And then on Dynamite, the main event was another Owen Hart semifinal. Will Ospreay defeating Mark Davis to advance, but Jesus, we had Callis family, Death Riders, Takeshita. It was major overbooking, but kind of in a good, I didn't even mind it. Like, it was a lot going on because backstage we had the Ospreay and Moxley stuff earlier too. So there was a lot happening in that match, but I actually didn't mind it. Don't really like that stuff for the Owen, but they keep the interference out of the C2 for the most part. So the Owen is a little bit more fun. 900 guys got involved in this, but I didn't mind it so much. Ospreay getting the win, a hard-fought win over his former boy, Mark Davis, and he now moves on in the Owen, and we're all expecting Ospreay to win and face MJF at All In is what we are all expecting. So there are your Raws and SmackDowns in a nutshell. Just wanted to get those out of the way. I'm sorry, SmackDowns and Dynamites in a nutshell. Wanted to get those shows out of the way so we can now move on to some wrestling news, which there is a fair amount of it. Before we do that, we'll take a quick break and check the chat here and knock out any other supers that have come in or anything else you guys are saying. Oh, there we go. Oh, come on. Just froze on me. Or not froze, but Like I'm trying to scroll the chat and it's just being funny. Do I need to refresh? Okay, let's refresh. There we go. Okay, now I can see a little bit better. Oh, well, now I can't see the main. I just want to make sure this one from Ryan is the next one. I'm pretty sure that it is. Let me just double check that so I don't want to miss any of them. Yeah, Ryan, that was all right. We're caught up. Okay, so Ryan Adams has got 5. I have no idea when they are going with Sammy Cody. They have been doing these segments since before the Chamber. Is it a possible Mania match? It could be. I mean, maybe they should be preparing for WrestleMania already. You know, you would like to think they have some sort of a long-term plan in place, but I don't trust anything WWE does creatively these days. So I definitely think they're setting up something for Sammy next year at Mania. Whether or not it's Cody related, I don't know. But I feel like Sammy and Cody are going to get a match probably before then, maybe even as early as Night of Champions, one-on-one, or maybe even in a triple threat with Gunther. And we talked all about that earlier. I'm kind of as stumped as you on that one because this shit between Sammy and Cody has been going on for a while. I mean, Sammy's pretty much a heel now, but still, it is getting a little bit on the old side. 5 more from Ryan. I wouldn't hate it, but don't see WWE changing the title on SmackDown for a third. Oh, it was the 3rd time this year. That's right, not 2nd, 3rd time. Oh yeah, I guess did Cody lose it on SmackDown? Yeah, I think Cody lost it on SmackDown and then won it back on SmackDown. It would be wild to have that title change again. It would be like 1999 WCW or 1999 WWE. How many title changes, took place that year? I saw live in person 3 WWE title changes in 1999. Austin winning twice and then Triple H winning it Unforgiven. I think there might even been another one in there somewhere that I'm not sure about. But the title changed hands a lot back in the day on television, and you don't really see that now. So doing it 3 times in, 6 months would be crazy. Fucking crazy. Judgment Day is still a thing. Yeah, Judgment Day's a thing, all right. They're almost as strong as ever, it feels like. Terry, thanks for the 250. Bailey, enter the restaurant one more time. No, I have not seen Bailey in my restaurant. I did see her latest Instagram post. Anyway, but she has never been into my restaurant. The only wrestler who's been into my restaurant is Nikki Bella. I've never seen any other wrestler in my restaurant other than her. Oh, God, Garrett. Could The Miz get Tourette's from the electrocution housing? Maybe. We saw it happen to Goldust when he got electrocuted. I don't know. It might not be Tourette's. It might just be the whatever Goldust had. But I don't know if Miz is... I like Miz, but there's no way he could mimic that affliction the way Goldust did. Plus, it might be borderline kind of offensive to some people who might have, speech issues or whatever. I don't know how in good taste that would be, but Miz did get electrocuted. I thought they just killed him because WWE wanted to get out of paying him his high contract. TKO can't look at Miz's contract and be like, oh, yeah, we're really happy with paying him that much. It's got to drive them nuts. So, set something up to off him. That's probably what they did. They convinced Danhausen to kill the Miz. But he might turn up with some sort of side effects from the electrocution. We've seen it before. Off Leather Wings is back. Thanks, bro. Good to see you. Thanks for the 5. I started enjoying AEW more when I stopped looking at them as 97 WCW putting WWE out of business and more like 2016 Ring of Honor with a 100 times bigger budget. Yeah, I don't think AEW really ever had the intent of putting WWE out of business. AEW is not that stupid. They know that you just can't do that. There's no just showing up and putting WWE out of business. Bischoff and WCW had a chance back in those days because Vince was running the company out of his living room and, paying money out of his own, just using company money. It was a family-run business, and they didn't have the budget. They weren't publicly traded. They weren't having multi-billion-dollar media rights deals. They were getting killed by WCW because of this discrepancy in what these two companies can pay their athletes. Now, AEW and WWE are on even footing there Tony Khan can outbid anybody he wants, and if WWE really wants to, they kind of could too. So that is no longer, a factor anymore, like how much wrestlers can get paid and why they would jump to one company or the other. It's not going to have as much to do with money nowadays as it did back in those days. But AEW, I definitely think, has weathered the storm since the CM Punk stuff. Since 2023, it's been 3 years now. I think they've healed and repaired and moved on from that. And like I said, or I'm going to say in a minute, they're going to have an opportunity here, I think, to grow even larger if they can capitalize on some of the mistakes WWE might be making. But now let's move into some wrestling news. We'll finish up the final hour here with some wrestling news because we got a pretty good amount of it here. And I definitely want to start with or talk about Mick Foley. Now, we talked about Mick Foley the minute he debuted in AEW or was announced that he was going to debut in AEW and he was advertised for the Double or Nothing buy-in. One of the first things we all started talking about is he going to wrestle? And I was like, yeah, I don't really have that much interest in seeing him wrestle. I think that ship has long since sailed. Wasn't it like all the way back in like 2012 or 2013 or something like that? 14 years ago, 12 years ago, something like that Mick Foley was supposed to work with Dean Ambrose, with Jon Moxley at SummerSlam. But he got a concussion. He couldn't get cleared or something, and they just couldn't do it. And Mick Foley, the fact that he's been able to keep his faculties to him, that he never suffered from CTE, that his brain isn't applesauce and he killed his wife and kids, or all these horror stories that you hear about and that we've seen from football and wrestling with these people with these horrific brain injuries and the years and years of abuse that their heads take and how that affects them as they get older. And the fact that Mick Foley treated his head worse than any other wrestler in history somehow can still have all of his faculties about him. He can read, he can write, he's well-spoken still after all of these years is incredible. The fact that he does not sound like Muhammad Ali is crazy. So I've always felt like really blessed that Mick Foley somehow managed to maintain and retain his health throughout all of the years of that damage he did to his body, specifically his head and his brain and his mind. So now, with the age that he is, how can he possibly come back and have any sort of a match? So when he was announced as a new member of AEW, I'm like, great. He'll be a great personality. Have him around backstage a little bit. He can host some of these pre-shows with Renee. Throw him out there on guest commentary sometimes. Apparently, he is a member of the commentary team. And he'd be a great personality to have, the hardcore legend in your company. I think that's a win all across the board. And even when Foley arrived at Double or Nothing, he looked in great shape. He was slim. When I saw him a couple of years ago in 2023, he was still kind of waddling around. He was still Big Mick Foley. He seems like he really slimmed down a lot. He's getting around a little bit better. He's got energy in his step and in his voice. His eyes are bright. And I'm like, well, he looks a lot better than I expected him to. But still, I don't know if I want him to wrestle. Well, then we get a report this week from Fightful Select that says this, and I quote, WrestleVotes Radio on Fightful Select have spoken to AEW sources that believe Foley has had his mind made up and that he would like to wrestle once more, and then it will be in AEW. Well, obviously, he works there exclusively now, so it's going to have to be there. It is believed that if he got cleared, Tony Khan would be eager to book the match. We've long heard that MJF has pushed to work a program with Foley, dating back before AEW even officially launched on TV. And in Foley's debut, I think this screenshot right here is taken from that, when MJF came out at Double or Nothing and confronted Foley and hit him with a low blow. And I remember joking that night because before Foley even came in, we were wondering not only if he would maybe be crazy enough to actually have another match, but would he get physical in any way? Would he be able to get physical? Will doctors allow him to be physical? And he was. His very first appearance, he takes a low blow. Now, granted, that's not, he's not punching anybody. He's not delivering offense. He's not dropping any elbows, taking any bumps. But that is technically getting physical. So they already set the stage for a potential MJF and Mick Foley match in AEW right there on his first night. So I'm very uncomfortable with the whole idea of Mick Foley wrestling, but I'm not going. I feel like a lot of the opinions that I've seen so far on social media are 100% driven by tribalism. Tony Khan should be ashamed of himself. He puts him in the ring. They're just using it as ammo. They don't give a fuck about Mick Foley. They're using it as a way to shit on the company that they are programmed to dislike. Now, I am not very intrigued in a Mick Foley match either. It's the same reason why I don't need to see any more from Brock Lesnar or Goldberg or anybody else, or even AJ Styles or Cena or Shawn or anybody else that, might want to come back. I don't need them to, same with Undertaker and all those guys. Like, I'm perfectly satisfied as a fan with what I got from Mick Foley. I never really saw much of his TNA days because I didn't really care about any of that. But his WCW, his ECW, his WWE days, and even his Japan Deathmatch stuff, as a fan, I'm very familiar with and I've seen from beginning to end. And as a Mick Foley fan, someone who's met him a couple of times, who respects the shit out of him, I am very, very satisfied with what Mick Foley gave me in his career. And for me personally, I don't need any closure, but maybe Mick does. He himself, in his books and his interviews, he's admitted that his TNA run was a cash grab, and maybe he regrets some of the damage that he did to his body in that promotion when he didn't need to. And he was just kind of doing it for the money. So, and I have no idea what Mick Foley's last match even was. I have no idea what his last official match was. No idea. He didn't have like a send-off, right? He never got that in WWE. I think when he came back from TNA, I remember he took an early rock bottom from The Rock, right when The Rock came back too. And I think that was the last time he was really physical. Then he was like the Raw GM for a while, and he was doing the shit with Stephanie. And I think she slapped him, and it was just a weird run that he had there in WWE when he wasn't wrestling anymore. So I don't even know what his last match was. You guys can tell me. But if he wrestles one more time, as a fan, I don't need to see it. But it's not my life. It's Mick Foley's life. And if Mick Foley really wants to do this, and the doctors say that as long as you protect yourself, it's safe, then I am fine with it. Do I need it? No. Do I have a problem with it? No. As long as the doctors are like, yeah. Now, if the doctors are like, we're going to clear you, but you need to know you are risking permanent damage to your health, then I'm not for it. But if Foley goes out there and he stays away from the head, don't take unprotected chair shots to the head, don't feel the need to do a back bump off of the stage or anything like that. Obviously, he's going to want to get hardcore. He's going to take some sort of a bump, but he's not going to be able to take like Hell in a Cell level bump or anything like that. So to me, it's all about like how the match would go and whether or not it's a single or a tag. It could be a tag. We saw Sting, tagging with Darby Allin. Maybe Mick Foley tags with Darby Allin too, because Foley said that, he sees himself in Darby. Darby's style was inspired. He's today's version of Mick Foley and Jeff Hardy kind of combined into one. So there's a history and a connection there just based on their wrestling styles between the two. So if it was Foley and Darby against MJF and somebody else, maybe that's what they would do on TV or on a pay-per-view or something. We don't know. Might have to be after All In if MJF is involved. Maybe it's after he drops the title. And then maybe in the fall they do a match with him and Foley. I don't know. But it would be pretty wild if Foley does get another match and we actually see another Mick Foley match, because I never thought we would see that again. And I don't think, like I said, I don't really need to. I don't need to see it, but I'm not like dying on the hill. No, this is fucking stupid. You should never do this. And AEW should go out of business and they should be canceled because they put Mick Foley in a match. If you're like that, do everyone a favor and shut up. Just shut up. But, for me as somebody who can look at this a little bit more impartially because of how long I've watched Mick Foley's career, it's not something that I'm going to criticize him for if this is what he wants to do. If this is his decision and it's his life and it's his career, then Mick has my support. But I just hope he doesn't go out there and takes any unnecessary risks. And if he does go out there, he knows what those risks are and doesn't make anything worse. And he just protects himself. It's all about protecting yourself. If you can go out there in a very, very safe way and give yourself and the audience one final moment of glory, then I'm fine with that. Tony Khan, it would put Mick Foley in his record books, having a match along with Sting, along with Cope and Christian being your tag team champions. That connection to history, I think, is really important. If I was Tony Khan, or if I had Tony Khan's job, some of those things would be important to me too, but I wouldn't want to risk anybody's health, because of that. Just because I want Foley in my record books as winning a match on a pay-per-view, I don't want to risk his health to get that, but I would want my company to be able to have a connection to the past, because they are the only competitor out there to WWE who basically owns the media rights to the entire past. So having guys like Foley, Copeland, Christian, Lashley, Sting, veterans that might come in, not hog up time and steal away from others, but to have those moments in AEW. So far, I haven't had too much to complain about those, and I've been very, very, I've heavily praised AEW's use of Sting. I think they used Sting better than I ever thought they could. So if anything, I think AEW, maybe deserves our trust. Look, they handled Sting well, and if how they handled Sting is any indication, they should handle Foley pretty well too. And I'm not that worried about anything outside of Mick Foley's own personal health. So just to sum up, if it was up to me, if Mick Foley, for some reason, allowed Greg Morgan to decide if he wrestles or not, I decide no. But if Mick Foley decides to wrestle, his doctors have given him the green light. He protects himself and creates a nice moment for him and the fans that doesn't do any additional harm to his health, then I'm happy with it, and that's all I can hope for. That's all we can hope for. So if this winds up happening, we just have to hope that Foley doesn't try to give us one more crazy moment and he focuses more on protecting himself. Just give us a moment. We don't need you to fall off anything, Mick. We love you. All we need you to go out there and do is smile. Throw a couple of punches, pull sock out of your britches, and that's kind of it, But please don't feel like you owe it to us to fall off something. We don't need you falling off a roof, Mick. We love you without you falling off roofs. We would have loved you without you falling off the top of the Hell in a Cell. We would have loved you without The Rock hitting you in the head with a chair 42 times while your hands were handcuffed behind your back. None of that needed to happen for us to love you. So if you go out there and you have a match, don't feel like you owe that to us. You don't. You don't owe us or anybody else anything at all. So just be careful, Mick Foley, and all the best to you. I'm going to pause in 1 second. For those of you who have been with us for the past, 2 to 3 streams, Tito has been very difficult while I've been doing podcasts. He wants to go in and out of the room. Usually he just sleeps and he's happy and content throughout the whole time I'm doing the podcast. But lately he just needs to be out and in and out and in, and I have to get up every now and then and deal with him. So I'm sorry for that. But luckily, Tito is extremely cute, and I'm sure you guys will forgive him because most of you have met him. Anywho, what is next on the list? Oh, we're going to stay on the subject of Mick Foley because I thought this was so sweet. Mick Foley and Britt Baker visited Rebel. They went and paid her a visit. Of course, AEW has got some merch right now with 100% of the proceeds going to ALS Research. And Rebel is, an ambassador for ALS. I mean, she has a terminal diagnosis. I mean, she's not down to years, she's down to months, and she's spending a lot of her time trying to educate and inform on ALS. If that doesn't tell you enough about that girl's heart, I don't know what will. And Foley and Britt visited her, took a photo. It was very sweet. And of course, Rebel was with Britt at the very beginning. And I love those days of those two together. And I think when Rebel was with Britt, that was when they were doing, remember when Britt was injured and they had like the little pulley system notes that were going up to Shivani? That stuff was so fun to me. And I always thought Rebel was just a complete smoke show. She was so awesome out there, and it's just so heartbreaking what has happened to her because she's been dealing for the past 2 years with these medical issues. And if you follow her on social media, on Instagram and Twitter, you see that she was constantly in the hospital trying to figure out what's wrong. Pray for me. Hopefully tomorrow we find out what's wrong. And all of this time went by, and then just to find out that she has terminal ALS and she is basically in the final stage of it, sucks. So, all the best to Rebel. Really enjoyed. I fucking feel like an asshole. I meant to put the link to donate on the description, and I forgot. But you can look up Rebel's social media. She will have information on where you can go and donate to ALS research if you would like, or you can go over to AEW shop and pick up a piece of merch or a wristband or whatever they have else for Rebel, and that'll be a good way to help out as well. But I thought that was really cool of Foley and Britt to pay Rebel a visit because we all love Rebel and we're all thinking about her. Now we got to get into this. My God, look at this douchebag. So we don't like Nick Khan here on this channel. He's done a lot of things that just reek of douche nozzle. And this latest one has to be heard to be believed. So Nick Khan this week did an interview with the Sports Business Journal, where he's asked about a variety of things, but he was also asked about how WWE responds to social media criticism. And here's what Nick Khan had to say, and I quote, "I've never read X or Twitter as it relates to our business." Bullshit. That is a vocal minority. Bullshit. We don't adjust our business based on complaint. Bullshit. We adjust our business based on ratings, revenue, and relevancy. We will never respond to social media criticism. Bullshit. Again, if ratings are down, if revenue is down, if relevancy is down, it's up to us. By the way, the plan was always how it ended up in Philly 2 years ago. Listen to this fucking lie. Listen to this lie right here, okay? This is a proven lie, okay? By the way, the plan was always how it ended up in Philly 2 years ago. It's a predetermined outcome in wrestling. No shit, Nick Khan. You want to throw the fans off. You want to let things bake. And then, boom, it ends up the way that we wanted it to end up. It never changed. That was just online rumors and gossip that we were changing. It never changed. This is the same guy that tried to read 15-year-old tweets at a town hall to prove a point. He has no fucking clue what he is talking about when it comes to wrestling. I'm sure he's a very savvy businessman, but don't try to act like you understand how a storyline should go. You don't know dick. I know more about quantum physics than you know about that. So fuck off, Nick Khan. He goes on to say that we convinced Dwayne Johnson to come back. He's on our board of directors. It was a tag team match. He's about the same age I am. So 2 years ago, let's say he was 50. What is that? What the fuck? He was obviously in phenomenal shape. He did everything. Well, guess who's not in phenomenal shape, Nick Khan? You. Lay off the butter. Holy shit. He did everything that we asked of him and then some. But that was always the result we were looking for. No, it was not. You lying sack of fat shit. Are you kidding me with this guy? Like, explain to me what the point is of deliberately being an asshole. It's this type of attitude, this horrendous attitude that they have towards the fans that I'm telling you is going to bite them very hard and bite them very soon. And AEW best not let this opportunity pass them by because they have really an opportunity to gain some ground. Obviously, there will never, ever, ever in a million years be a way to overthrow the WWE. They are number one. AEW is number two. But you can close that gap when you've got a company over here that turns off their audience to this degree. Number one, you got a lazy as all hell product that lacks soul, lacks excitement, lacks intrigue. It's just this ad-heavy and commercial-smeared corporate fucking mess on every show. And then you've got your higher-ups, your people in charge that go in public and say something like this that is a lie. He is directly contradicting the WWE's own story about pivoting due to fan backlash. WWE did a whole goddamn documentary on this where Cody Rhodes was interviewed, Triple H was interviewed, The Rock was interviewed, Seth Rollins was interviewed. All of these people were interviewed, and they spoke about the way it was going to be Roman and Rock and how the fans loudly complained. And The Rock, even in the documentary, says, we don't like it when the fans are upset. Okay, let's not do this. What can we do to fix this? And they talked about as if they were bragging about it. They seem to be very, very proud about their ability to creatively pivot when they need to. And the criticisms were very loud when it looked like Cody Rhodes was going to get screwed out of that opportunity. And the fans made WWE adjust. And the loudest fans were the ones on social media. That's where you were seeing all this stuff. And social media isn't just X, it's Instagram, it's YouTube. How many podcasters and personalities and wrestlers even were making videos about how all this shit sucks. It's been 4 years in a row, because even at 2023, at WrestleMania 39, Vince was sticking his nose in. 4 straight consecutive years. This company fucked with the creative of a WrestleMania main event, and then this fat asshole goes publicly and says, no, we never do that. We don't listen to X. It's a vocal minority. We're not going to do anything until we see our money drop. Then we will take action. Yeah, see how that works out for you, Nick Khan. Because there's usually a delay. When your product starts sucking, it takes a while for the ratings and attendance to taper off, and by the time you've noticed it, it's too late. And this is what happened to WCW. And you can't just wait for your bottom line to start changing, because you got to be able to read the room, so to speak. See what the fans are saying. Understand that. I'm not saying read social media accounts from bots. It's like when somebody was like, well, you get your news from Twitter? Well, no, not really. I mean, I don't. But like let's say you read you watch a game highlight or a sports score from on ESPN's Twitter page. Let's say they report on an election result on ABC News' Twitter account. It doesn't mean you're learning the news from Twitter. You're learning it from people who are just using that platform. So it doesn't mean that Twitter is a lot of bots and shit, but there are a lot of bots. There are a lot of fake accounts, small accounts, people hiding behind burners, people with multiple accounts, all tweeting out nonsense behind an AI pic and 11 followers. Not that those people aren't even people, but there are real, actual humans, wrestling fans, who aren't tribal little bitches, who aren't ugly little fucking shut-in teenagers that like to spam the word retard and faggot everywhere they go. It's not just them. You actually do have adults. You actually do have people on there that care. Real fans with real opinions that spend money on your product and go to the show. They are the reason why your company succeeds. They happen to have a social media account where they express disappointment with whatever is going on. And you can't act like you don't know about this shit. Triple H is damn sure online. And when Nick Khan says, I don't read anything, yes, you do. Yes, you do. Yes, you do. How fucking stupid do you think your audience is? I think WWE thinks fans are the dumbest motherfuckers in the world. And granted, many of them are. But there are plenty of wrestling fans out there that are sane, rational, normal-ass humans that just want to be entertained by pro wrestling. And when they see the corporate side of WWE coming in, screwing up creative ideas and finishes and whatnot, it's very, very frustrating to fans who want to see a better product, who really enjoy pro wrestling and don't want to see it bad. You got a whole pocket of wrestling fans out there that root for a company to fail. You've got AEW sickos that want WWE to die, and you got WWE sickos that want AEW to die. All y'all are stupid as fuck. You know that, right? You know you are incredibly stupid. You have to know that. If you don't, I'm here to tell you. You're fucking stupid. But I'm talking about the regular people, fans that want and desire and thirst for a good quality WWE creative product. And then you got this fuck going on saying, oh, we don't listen to any of that, when it's a lie. It is a lie. They are contradicting themselves, their own documentary that they produced and released on Netflix, detailing exactly how they pivoted because of fan backlash on social media. And then he's going on publicly in an interview and saying the exact opposite when we know. It's not like this is something that can be debated. Oh, maybe as a point. No, he directly lied. This is a lie. He's lying. It's like, what is the motivation with like today's society to like do this type of like gaslighting? Because I really don't think that Nick Khan can really believe that. He knows he's telling a lie. So he either thinks that the fans are too dumb to know that he's lying, or he's just purposely gaslighting them for his own personal shits and giggles. Okay. But I think that's a really, really bad business practice. And what these corporate fucking clowns don't understand is how that can alienate your fan base with an attitude like that, that's so dismissive and insulting to the audience. Much of your audience, who really does care and loves the WWE product, and you thumb your nose at them and you look down at them and call the ones that are the most passionate and care the most a vocal minority. These are the people you should be listening to, you fat dick. And yet you act like that. It's unbelievable, how society can be now. And this is like the norm. You got these, look at politics. All these fuckers, you think that little prick speaker, Mike Johnson, he's a walking gaslighting machine. Every idiotic thing the fat sleeping bucket of piss says on a daily basis. Oh, I haven't heard that yet. I haven't heard anything about that. I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about that. They're just gaslighting you. That's all they're doing. And I feel like Nick Khan, and I've said this about Triple H in the past, and I don't think he's like that as much anymore, but he definitely used to be. There is something about this company and the people in charge in this company. And it's been like this for a while. It was like this back in the Authority days. And I've said it about Triple H a million times. There's some sort of weird, perverse enjoyment that they get out of upsetting their own fan base. It's like they get an erection from it. And it's so weird. Where you've got Tony Khan, who's basically had the opposite strategy lately, where he's going to kill everyone with kindness. He's going to, he even went on, like, think of the two douche nozzles like Coach and Bro. He went on their show to talk to those two ass clowns. And he was so nice and so kind, even brought up his faith in God and all of this. He's trying to be the opposite of what these corporate douchebags are being, because, at some point, all of these fans who are obsessed with Tony Khan, I mean, they're the ones that are looking pretty silly here. You got people that like make YouTube and social media accounts dedicated to hating this nice guy who, whose only crime is being a little bit dorky and hugging his wrestlers from time to time. Wouldn't you rather have that? And also somebody that when you sign a contract with him, he's going to see your contract through. I mean, unless you're an asshole or you do something stupid or you fuck up and they got to release you. If you sign a contract with Tony Khan, he's going to pay you through the duration of that contract. You sign a contract with WWE, especially a big money one, a 5-year deal, they're going to try to get out of that or restructure it halfway through every single fucking time now. That's the way TKO does business. So when it comes to this type of attitude from Nick Khan and other people in charge, and then you combine that with the soulless, lazy as all ever-loving fuck creative and these long-ass Smackdowns and advertisements and commercials smeared all over the landscape, the ring posts, the ring mat, the fucking tables. You got 19 commercials on PLEs now because they air on ESPN, and this is going to turn your audience off. It's already starting. The ratings have been shit for Smackdown and Raw lately. I mean, comparatively to what they were getting. SmackDown was just barely over 1 million viewers last week. Now, granted, it aired at a different time. Extenuating circumstances, of course. But like that's pretty bad. So right now, the attendance is still high. They're drawing all the revenues they want to draw. And that's really, I mean, Nick Khan said it himself. That is the only thing that they care about. They will not, according to him anyway, they will not make any changes until that money starts decreasing. That tells you all you need to know about this company and its motivations and how low fan enjoyment is on WWE's priority list. We are so far down the list of shareholders and revenues and attendance and all this shit. All of that comes first. Fan happiness, that's right down by, next to, whatever they're going to choose to have in catering that day. That's how important we are to them, to where they blow us off, the people that are supporting them, going to their shows, bringing their kids to their shows. And these are the people that Nick Khan thinks are a vocal minority that don't deserve to be heard. Sure, Twitter is a cesspool. Twitter's an echo chamber of absolute fucking morons. But you got to understand when you're looking at a moron and when you're not. It's very easy to spot an idiot on Twitter because they don't have any followers and there's never a picture of themselves. They got a timeline of miles long of 0 likes where they're calling everybody else names and lashing out and being assholes, and they're probably just bots. But you can tell when you're talking to a real person. You can see these, and I think there are ways to weed out social media criticism. And you can tell the ones that are based on tribalism or just based on hate or, anything like that, and the ones that are actually genuine. The people who complain not because they're taking enjoyment out of complaining, but complaining because they want to see better. And these are the folks that Nick Khan feels that are so insignificant that they're not even going to consider any of their feelings at all, which is a direct, provable lie, because they made an entire documentary about pivoting due to fan backlash. I can't be the only one that thinks this is the biggest fucking douchebag that exists in the pro wrestling space right now, right? What an asshole. What an asshole. In case you can't tell, I strongly dislike Nick Khan. Strongly dislike Nick Khan. And speaking of Nick Khan, this giant sack of chocolate shit, also the WWE shareholder trial, which was supposed to begin June 8th in Delaware, has been taken off the Delaware Chancery Court's calendar for some reason. Now, Bloomberg Law reported on Friday that the planned 4-day trial had been taken off the court's schedule. Greg Varallo, an attorney for the shareholder plaintiffs, confirmed to the outlet that the trial was no longer on the calendar, but declined to elaborate. It is not known why the case was removed from the schedule. There has been no confirmation that the sides have reached a settlement. That came from Post Wrestling. So sounds like that shareholder trial that we broke down a little bit last week, and we talked about the trial starting on June 8th, which is going to be Monday, is no longer on the calendar. So we will see. Maybe they did reach a settlement, and that's why it's off. We'll have to see. But I believe they are seeking 9 figures in damages, and it's going to be a lot. And it sounds like it could be a settlement because, like we said, we talked about last week how the judge sanctioned WWE and now shifting the burden of proof to them to show that all of this destroying of evidence, this deleting of evidence, it's up to them to prove that that's not true. And we know they can't do it because it is true. So maybe they see that there's no way out. There's no way we can avoid not settling here. So let's try to settle. That's what it looks like they might be doing here. But we'll keep our eye on that trial and see what winds up shaking out of that. If anybody has caught Maven's latest YouTube video, he talks about why he hates Triple H. It's about a 20-minute video. It's on his YouTube channel right now. And he talks about a lot of things, but he had some stories to tell about Triple H, about when he was there. They showed a lot of clips, even the first one from Tough Enough when Triple H went and visited the Tough Enough guys in his first little interaction with Maven. And Maven said that in the beginning, Triple H was really good to him. He said that Triple H gifted him his first pair of wrestling boots. And for the first year or so, that he could approach Triple H and pick his brain and ask him things about pro wrestling. And Triple H was always really happy to give back and engage. And and all of that stuff with Maven and had a lot of nice things to say about Triple H. But he said as years went on, Triple H started making little snide comments and little digs and basically, kind of reminding Maven where his place was on the roster. And we've heard about this shit from Triple H for years. He's always been very sophomoric, and there's always been a politicking behind the scenes in WWE that goes on, and Maven talked about that. He even admitted that he himself was maybe brown-nosing and kissing ass a little bit there in the beginning with Triple H, but he said a lot of guys do that. A lot of guys try to buddy up to Triple H so they can be as safe as possible the next time a round of releases come. So he talks about the politics that exist and, the ulterior motives that can sometimes exist in some of these relationships and whatnot. But went on to tell some stories about, Triple H when, he started getting some power in WWE and, the Evolution days and how he started to change. And then all of a sudden, the two of them weren't as tight anymore, and Triple H was even making some snide comments to Maven or about Maven and shit like that. And the most interesting one was when he claimed that he was forced to go to Triple H's bachelor party. And this is the part I want to quote. He says, I tried to do Maven's act. I remember when he and Stephanie were about to get, I can't do Maven. Maven has a southern accent, but I still can't do his southern accent. So he says, I remember when he and Stephanie were about to get married. The company actually forced us to go to his bachelor party. We would fly in on Friday, wrestle 3 non-televised house shows, do Raw on Monday, and then fly home on Tuesday. The company decided to have a bachelor party on a Tuesday night in a North Carolina strip club, which I'm curious where that was, and they conveniently made sure all of our flights were for Wednesday. We had to go. I still don't think you had to go. I don't think you were being literally forced, probably just strongly implied that it'd be a good idea if you went, is what I'm guessing here. And he said that I can't remember anyone not showing. Guys didn't want to be the one who didn't show up for the bachelor party. Actually, there was one guy who didn't show up. Who would that be? Triple H himself. We were in the club the entire night, and he would show up the last 20 minutes before closing time. So I've never heard this story about Triple H's bachelor party. I'd love to know who else was there and who else could maybe corroborate this story and back this up. But Maven was like, they made everybody go to his bachelor party, and then he no-showed his own bachelor party up until the last 20 minutes. What the hell was he doing? Where was he? And why did it take him so long to get there? And what strip club were they at? Were they in Charlotte? Were they in Raleigh? I'm curious what city they were in back in those days. He accused also Triple H a little bit of squashing his push, while also, praised him for the job he's doing now, but did criticize the lack of excitement on the shows and criticized the overuse of ads and talked about the same thing I've talked about a lot, how Mondays used to be destination TV. And I remember back, especially in the Attitude Era, how much I loved and looked forward to Mondays. Now, for basically the past 30 years, I've been off every Monday night, primarily for wrestling. So I always had Mondays off, and a lot of times back in the day, I would plan my day around Raw, and I've always just had a fond memory of being off on Mondays and watching Raw and the show being good and it leaving you wanting more. You can't wait until next week. Even in around late 98, 99, I briefly left the restaurant business for about 10 or 11 months, about a year. I just decided to maybe try something new, and I took a 9-to-5 job managing a loan office. And I hated it from day one. It took me 10 months to leave, but eventually I left, went back to restaurants. But during that time, as much as I hated working that job, having to get up in the morning and be there and work all fucking day and then go home, I just hated that life. I was not built to sit at a desk from 9 to 5. The God that doesn't exist did not build Greg for that. I'm built for something else. And so I needed to find that out for myself, But even during that job, Mondays were the worst, because I hated the job. And then after the weekend was over, I had to go to work on Monday, but Mondays were easy because I looked forward to Raw. Even though I was bat dog shit tired in the morning, fucking bedhead, one bloodshot eye, trying to get ready for work, and then driving to the stupid office. I would look forward to that day because I knew when I got off, I'd go home and watch Raw. And even where I worked, there was I lived a little bit inland back in those days. There was this nice little seafood store. We're probably the only best place in town to kind of get really fresh seafood because the fishermen brought it in and stuff. But it was kind of in the ghetto. And I remember every Monday I had a little routine of I would get off from work at around 5. I'd lock up the office and I'd drive over to the seafood place and I'd usually buy myself a couple of lobster tails. I'd grab a couple of lobster tails from the fish market. Then I'd head over to the store and grab myself a steak. And I would go home every Monday and I would make myself steak and lobster as I watched Monday Night Raw in my living room on my big 50-inch TV that weighed 6,000 pounds on rollers. Even when I had a 9-to-5 job that I hated, I still looked forward to Monday Night Raw. That's the point. And when Maven said that, I'm like, that's something I've mentioned on the podcast and in my videos so many times over the years is how fun Mondays used to be, because one thing that, we have to consider when it comes to ratings is that back then, that was the only way to watch. If you want to watch Raw, you got to watch that night on that time on that channel, unless you pop a tape in your VCR. This was before DVR. This is before YouTube, all that stuff. Now you don't have to watch on that channel that night. So when SmackDown just barely draws over 1 million people, if you think only 1 million people are watching SmackDown, you are crazy. There's probably at least 5 million people watching SmackDown because they watch it on demand later on, watch clips on YouTube, get an update from social media. There's definitely more people watching WWE and AEW than what the ratings are showing because of how many different options and ways you have to watch the show. Sometimes I pop a replay of the show on in my car, just magnet my phone right up to my dash, and I just kind of watch SmackDown as I'm driving. Shit like that. There's so many different ways that you can consume the content now that Mondays aren't as exciting as they used to be. Now, the creative doesn't help and the landscape doesn't help, but I do miss the days of saying, I cannot wait to see what happens on Monday Night Raw. I have not said that in 25 years. It's been a quarter century since I've said, man, Raw's going to be off the hook tonight. And shit, we're 24. I'm about to say, when did WWF change to WWE? 24 years ago, right around this point, right? So it's been a long time. It's probably been since 2001 that I've, right when the invasion started, that I was really, kind of salivating for Monday Night Raws, looking forward to them. That's how long it's been. So things are different now. And Maven, even though the title of the video was Why I Hate Triple H, I think he spent more time in the video praising him than he did criticizing him. So take a look at Maven's video and let me know what you think. Hey, here's some good news. Turns out The Rock will not be attending that ridiculous Idiocracy UFC show on the fucking White House lawn. Back in the day, we used to only joke about America turning into the movie Idiocracy. Look no further than the White House lawn, and there's your proof. We've done it. We did it. It's here. We are living in the movie Idiocracy. We're literally living it right now. Thankfully, Rock is not going to the circus, and a lot of other musical acts have been pulling out of that freedom, fuck your mom bullshit or whatever it is. And it's not because of anybody's lack of love for America. It's for their lack of love for the giant sack of shit that runs it. So Rock is not going, which is good, but will he go to Saudi? There's still a lot of questions surrounding The Rock and Saudi Arabia next year. And what I really worry about is Rock dragging his goddamn feet again and not knowing if he wants to do it or not, which then puts all of WWE's creative plans on hold while you figure it out. So basically, for a WrestleMania in Saudi, I don't even care what they do next year. Book The Rock versus a camel. I could care less. It's in Saudi Arabia. I don't like the idea of that whole show being over there, and I'm hoping that AEW and WrestleCon and every other promotion outside of WWE can create a really, really fun weekend here in the States during the same weekend that they're over there. Lots of shows, WrestleCon, all the stuff like normal. Just do it without WWE's attachment to it. So I don't really care what they do, but if The Rock is going to pull one of these things where he's going to like take the year to decide, and then by the time Christmas rolls around, he'll tell WWE his answer, I don't think that's not going to do any favors creatively. And Saudi Arabia, you know, there's reports that they're kind of changing some of their spending habits. And so they're not going to be maybe as willing to throw like stupidly obscene amounts of money on people just for shits and giggles. So, you know, if Saudi is going to be the ones really calling to The Rock, hey, we'll pay you $10 million, then he needs to go ahead and commit to that way, way, way ahead of time. I just hope that whatever goes on next year in Saudi Arabia, and whether or not The Rock has his final match against Roman Reigns or not, I just hope that he doesn't just take forever to decide that, and just let WWE know so they can plan accordingly and don't keep everybody in limbo. You know, just don't keep us in limbo. It's a great party trick and a terrible relationship status. You don't want to be in limbo, and don't keep WWE or the fans in limbo like that. You know, just if you're going to work. If not, don't. Just make sure that WWE's aware of what these plans are so they don't have to do any more creative pivoting, because what if Rock takes forever to decide again, and then they've got more creative plans for Cody Rhodes, but then whatever Rock decides screws up Cody Rhodes' plans, and now you've got 5 straight WrestleManias where you've messed with Cody. I just think that would be so fucked up. So we will keep our eye on the Rock situation, but we got to start thinking about Saudi Arabia, because I believe that if he doesn't have that match with Roman at Saudi Arabia, then I think Rock has wrestled his last match. His last match will be pinning Cody Rhodes, not being pinned by Roman Reigns, which is what it should be. Have you guys seen this photo of CM Punk working out? Punk has gotten himself jacked. Phil is jacked. Now, he's had plenty of time on his hands because WWE apparently has not given him any creative. He has not been on TV or seen since WrestleMania, since the night that he said he's not going to take a vacation. Well, it looks like WWE made him take one because they have nothing for him creatively. So he's spending some time in the gym, getting himself jacked. Nick Nemeth accused him of having, or not Nick Nemeth, Ryan Nemeth accused him on social media of taking PEDs. Still some heat there between those guys. He said something like, it's funny when straight edge guys won't put anything in their bodies except PEDs. So I don't know if that's necessarily the case with Punk. He might just be working out real hard. Looks to be in great shape. And like I said, I think he should go back to SmackDown, or go to SmackDown and be on that show, but they might have to get him back to Raw first before they set the plans in motion to get him to SmackDown. But I just feel like SmackDown would be a good place for CM Punk whenever he comes back to WWE. And speaking of WWE, apparently there's some heavy interest in Mike Santana once his contract with TNA runs its course, and I don't even know when it comes up. But there have been reports that WWE is so interested in him that they could get him fast-tracked there, much like they did Joe Hendry, and Mike Santana could probably be a full-blown member of WWE before the year is done. So I can definitely see that being a landing spot for him. It felt that way even when he came into TNA, that eventually that would be him going to WWE. He has appeared on NXT before, so he's already been kind of in the WWE under the umbrella. He works with TNA, who has a working agreement with WWE. So Santana going to the WWE, I'm rooting for him. I really hope that he does. And if he does, I hope he finds success there. Who he'd align with, who he'd feud with, all that stuff could be interesting. All the best to Mike Santana as he probably makes his way over to WWE. And when he does arrive, I really do wish him nothing but the best because I like Mike Santana a lot. Some of you guys were tweeting me links to this match, so I watched it. But this past week on TNA Impact, they had a Wicked Garden match. It was the Righteous. It was Vincent and Dutch taking on the Hardys, Matt and Jeff Hardy. It was, there's basically like floral arrangements all around the ring posts that are wrapped in barbed wire. And this was one of the bloodiest, or the bloodiest match in Hardy Boys history. There was one really gross spot where Hardy was all tied up in the barbed wire. It was literally wrapped around him and he was hanging from it on the outside of the ring. Looked to be really, really brutal. And the Hardy Boys go down in in a very, very violent match that, again, I wonder me and Jeff are the same age and Matt is older than both of us. How much longer do you want to wrestle this style of violence? Like, how long is this going to go? And I've been calling for the Hardy Boys to go into the WWE Hall of Fame for the past couple of years. And since WrestleMania is in Saudi Arabia this year, my belief, what we talked about a couple months ago, is that WWE is going to have to hold the Hall of Fame ceremony here in the States and tape it and air it while they're over there for WrestleMania weekend. And I think the Hardy Boys should be on the top of this year's list as potential inductees into the class of 2027 WWE Hall of Fame, because they are still going, and wrestling a match like that is pretty surprising and was pretty gross. But anyway, love the Hardys, always have, and wish them the best. And we'll see what else they do now in TNA after this loss. And we have one small departure to get into. Butcher and Blade, according to Sean Ross Sapp, have officially left AEW. It looks like their contracts expired and AEW opted not to renew them. So the Butcher and the Blade are gone. And we'll see if maybe they turn up anywhere else. I was always a big fan of them. There's a lot of those, wrestlers that were a part of early AEW that are kind of no longer there. Even some of the pillars aren't really pillory anymore. I don't feel like Jack Perry is a pillar or Sammy Guevara is a pillar. I don't feel like Britt Baker is a pillar. None of them are really around. Well, Jack Perry is, but Sammy's doing some Ring of Honor stuff, but he's not used like he used to be. Of course, Rebel, fell ill. Butcher and Blade are gone. And, we've seen, some other... Who's somebody else that was kind of there at the very beginning? Obviously, Brody Lee passed away. We know, even somebody like Jimmy Havoc was there early on, remember? So they had some weird talent there in the beginning, but man, they have really grown as a company. And now some of these earlier or, undercard guys that have been there for so long, might start slowly fading out of the company. And Butcher and Blade are the latest to depart. So all the best to the two of them if they continue wrestling or they do anything else. I was always a big fan. So anyway, that makes me, to the end of my notes. I got to the end of it. And we got a few minutes left. I can hang out here in the chat, see what you guys are talking about, and if you want to get into anything else that I need to talk about. Just as a reminder, join us tomorrow night, 8 Eastern, 5 Pacific. We're going to watch these two episodes of Raw and Nitro from February 24th, 1997. The NWO on one show, the BWO on the other. ECW invades Raw in the Manhattan Center, while the NWO tries to convince Sting to join the group in WCW. And I'm pretty sure this was right after this image there of Savage. He must have just joined the NWO, because this was February of 97. I don't remember when he exactly joined, but I feel like that's very new, because I think in the beginning of 97, he was not in the NWO yet. So he must have just joined, and we're going to be watching those two episodes tomorrow night, and then we will be back on Monday as well for a Raw review. I'm just not sure what time we're going to come up yet, since Raw is in France, and it airs early. All right, let me go over here to the chat and see what else we're saying. We've got 5 from Garrett Osborne. Thank you for that, my friend. According to Cage Match, Foley's last match was 2012 Royal Rumble. Okay. Last tag was with Funk versus Piper and Bob Orton. Really? Last singles match was Flair in TNA. Oh, God. I didn't even know Foley was in the Rumble. He was in the 2012 Rumble? 2012, that would have been the year. That would have been WrestleMania 28. So who fucking won the Rumble? Don't tell me. WrestleMania 28 in 2012 would have been Rock and Cena in the main event. So the two title matches were Jericho and Punk. I don't think Jericho won. And the other title match was it Bryan? And Sheamus, maybe it was Sheamus. Did Sheamus win the 2012 Royal Rumble? Because at WrestleMania 28 in 2012, it was Sheamus beating Daniel Bryan in seconds, right? And then Punk beat Jericho. So it was either Sheamus or Jericho, and I don't think Jericho's ever won a Rumble. I'm going to go Sheamus on that. I'm pretty sure. But I didn't even know Foley was in the 2012 Rumble. That is wild. And his last singles match was with Flair in TNA. And he fought him and Funk faced Piper and Ace. If anybody has a link to that, can you send me that on Twitter? I don't know. I never even heard of that match happening. But Piper and Orton reuniting, and it feels so good. I would like to see that and how awful the match was. God, how many times have I even seen Piper and Funk interact? I can't think of many. That's wild, man. Yes, Collision is about to start, by the way. Okay, Ryan is saying that Mick's daughter Noelle said it's not happening. Noelle was in the crowd, too, at Double or Nothing. So Noelle doesn't want her dad to wrestle. I don't know if I trust Noelle. She wanted to be a wrestler, and she just washed out of that. Part of me just thinks that she doesn't follow through with her dreams. So I don't know if I really care about what Noelle thinks. Foley wants to do it. He going to do it. All right, I was right on. 75% chance of rain on the day of the UFC show. I would love for it to rain. So fucking hard. So fucking hard. Lightning bolt hit the top of that monstrosity apparatus that they have erected in the people's house there and just burn the whole damn thing down. Oh, that would be great. That would be great. I don't know if I could see Butcher and Blade in WWE, but possibly TNA. And yeah, the Bunny too. Bunny was there with them. I think Bunny and Blade are a couple, or they were married, or I think. Yeah, they were Dark Order guys. That's right. Just scrolling up, reading some of your other comments from earlier to make sure there's nothing else you guys are wanting me to discuss. Good to see you, Mohammed and Bonkers and Delayed Grats, Jay Lambo. Alex, Jordan, Ian, Trey. A lot of people I didn't hit with shout-outs earlier. Good to see you in here, and thanks for hanging out with us this afternoon. Well, now I have got to go to work. I got a very late one. I'm going to be managing a retirement party tonight. It doesn't even start until 7 o'clock, so I'm going to be there till the end. So it's going to be late night for old Greg, and then I have to get up tomorrow to do a lunch for my sister's birthday, but then I will be home with a nice frosty brew wide open for us to watch Raw and Nitro tomorrow night for the watch-along. So make sure you join us. And thank you so much for hanging out today. Rodrigo, I don't know who the first episode of Dark Side of the Ring is. I forgot. I think it might be the Jarrett one. I think they open with Jarrett. I think it's like a 2 or 3 parter. And I don't even know when that starts. Soon. But we can probably look that up right now. Let me just copy this. Okay, we start July 7th. Episode 1 is July 7th. Trying to see the episode list here. Here's the 2026 season. Here we go. Yeah, so the first 3 are Jeff Jarrett in TNA. So the first 3 Dark Side of the Rings are going to be all on the same subject. Episode 4 will be Necro Butcher versus Samoa Joe. 5, Big Boss Man. 6, Renegade. 7, Orndorff. 8, Missy Hyatt. And the series finale will be Zach Gowen on August 25th. So we've got, and I'm sorry, July 7th has the first 2. So the first 2 episodes, part 1 and part 2, of Jeff Jarrett's TNA run will be on July 7th. Part 3 will be the following week on July 14th, and then 1 episode per week until the end of August. That's what is going to be going down for Dark Side of the Ring. All right, guys, I'm going to get out of here. I got a big night ahead of me, so I got to bolt. But you guys take care. Thank you so much for hanging out this afternoon, and I will be catching you tomorrow night for the watch-along. Really looking forward to that. Y'all have a go. Oh, and by the way, I will put the audio... push the audio out to the podcast feed later on tonight, so you'll just have to wait a little while for that. I apologize. But thanks again. Have a great rest of your night, y'all, and I'll be catching you tomorrow. Peace.